Professor Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet Healing System, annotated, revised, and edited by Professor Spira, is a complete course for those who desire to take their health into their own hands.
Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm Professor Spira, and with me is Tony Baliby, and we are here today to talk about the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And so Tony has a few questions for me today, so I will turn it over to him.
Hey, greetings, Spira. I'm 36 hours into a melon phase. I've just been hitting these cantaloupes. There's another kind of melon too that I don't know the name of. It's like kind of white on the outside, but the inside is orange.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, I've been feeling really good, and one thing I wanted to ask you about is like the timing of meals, because I found that there's kind of like if I eat a lot, my bowel movements are kind of like loose. But if I go into more of a fasting state every time before I eat, then I get like these compact bowel movements that are obviously like eliminating and digesting a lot more like obstruction and old waste. So just as far as transitional dieting, like, do you think that it's, or at the higher levels or something, is it better to allow your body to really break down before you eat again, or is it good to just kind of have those days where you kind of just like eat, you know? And it's kind of one of those things connected to like, do you eat a lot of fruit, or should you really just push on the minimalism?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and there's lots of stuff connected to that as well, because when I actually let my body digest the fruit and the grape sugar, you know, and get those sugars, it like really takes me somewhere, versus if I just keep eating fruit whenever I'm hungry, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you can really, I mean, that's a big part of the art form of the transition diet, is strategically placing certain meals at certain times and certain strategies of eating. You just mentioned two there, basically. Do you have smaller amounts of fruit and maybe space them out further apart, or do you have smaller amounts of fruit periodically throughout the day, or do you maybe have meals that are spaced out far apart with large amounts of fruit, where you sort of just fill up on fruit, go a long period of time without eating anything else, and then maybe have another fruit meal where you only have, you know, two big fruit meals. So you can have two small fruit meals, two big fruit meals. You can have your first fruit meal later, where maybe you're just only on water or juice all the way up until you get up at 7, 8, or 9, and you might just drink water. You might not even consume anything until 1 or 2 p.m. Then you have a bigger fruit meal or a smaller fruit meal, and then don't consume anything else again until 9 or 10 that night. It really depends on what you're going through and physiologically what you need. And that's where a little intuition can go a long way. Once you've experienced what those different modes do, then you can better, because I would say that there's a reason to do every one of those modes based on where you could be at some point. So at some point, it's going to make sense to have a huge fruit meal in the afternoon, and then another huge one in the evening. In another context, it's going to make sense to have a small fruit meal in the afternoon, and then another small fruit meal in the evening, or a large fruit meal in the evening. And then at other times, there's definitely been times where I've eaten fruit sort of periodically throughout the day over like an extended period, where it was almost like one meal that lasted all day, just because I'd be like an apple, and then maybe half hour later I had another apple, then just kind of in that mode. And it's always went where I'm at physiologically. Another factor in there is enemas, where you place your enemas. Do you do your enema first thing in the morning, last thing before you go to bed? Do you do an enema if you start to feel like you crave mucus? Then that was a big strategy for me in the early days. Was as soon as I craved mucus or pus, back when I still craved pus, which pus-forming foods, for anybody out there does not know, that's meat and dairy. When I still crave that stuff, the enemas saved the day. Because I pat people on the back, all you raw foodists and plant-based eaters that were able to skip enemas to transition to plant-based diet. You're better than me. I couldn't do it.
Right.
I couldn't have got off of meat the way I did, not in the relatively short period of time, and it still took me longer to get off of it than it takes a lot of people. So I have no shame in my game of enemas, and strategically placing it and that's why I think I find it to be better to wait longer. The longer you can wait in the morning before breaking your night fast, before breakfast, the better, so that you're having your first meal in the afternoon or later. But again, it depends on what you're going through, because sometimes you're going to want to eat something an hour after you get up, so for me, it's again, as always, it's more a general way to think about the eating process, a transitional way to understand that there really is nothing, when you get into these levels of fruit, there really is no hard fast rule that says, well, this is what you should do, this is what you should. Now, I can say that Professor Arnold Ehret, basically in the kind of mono fruit approach, is to have two large meals, two large fruit meals, or considerable fruit meals in that day, because it's kind of like, if you're gonna be eating, then eat enough that will create an elimination. So he would say to eat your fruit meal, mono fruit meal, in the afternoon, 1 o'clock or 12 or 2 o'clock or something like that, around what people call lunchtime, I guess. And then have your next meal as far off as you can kind of push it. Maybe not necessarily right before you go to bed, but that 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock time, so you can have a longer period between the first time you ate and last time you ate. That, at least from a Mucusless Diet Healing System book perspective, that is a strategy to use. Now of course there's been more people recently that get into the periodic fruit eating kind of all day with that approach, where it's kind of like, well, as long as you're just eating fruit, just eat as much as you want all day, and don't necessarily make separate meals out of it, or you don't have to think about it like that. So it's really just depends on what you're going through physiologically.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And so are you trying to do kind of like a mono melon?
Oh man, I was I got a lot of grapes and I got a lot of melons right now.
Okay, well that's
nice,
Yeah.
But I also got I got a nice amount of mucusless greens, But what I'm thinking is that I'll just kind of have that when I need it. So I don't know if I'll hold on to it for a while or what, but I'm just really enjoying the melons and grapes right now, And
Yeah.
the grapes got seeds in them too,
Oh, okay.
so that's good.
Yeah.
And I got a watermelon with seeds.
And they talk about endangered species.
Right.
That's the real endangered species.
So it's going good, man, and it's just time for me to do something because honestly, man, I'm going through a phase where a lot of old cravings are coming up. It's really strange. I mean, I've been vegetarian now like maybe 7 years. Well, let's see, I'm 26. I was like 19, I think, when I started transitioning. So into vegetarianism. So yeah, and I haven't craved a lot of stuff up until now, but I've just started hitting this point where the other day, like fried food has been calling me again, and I gotta admit, man, there was some fried pus, foods that when I smelled them, I was like, I would like something like not so much like I wanted fried chicken,
right?
But it was like because I know it's the fried piece that's getting me.
Right.
And so it's the fats because I'm transitioning off of fats right now.
Right.
That's the avocados and stuff, and also like the fried potatoes. Those things have been kind of calling to me.
Yeah.
So actually, what I did the other day, man, like 3 days ago, I made some baked cauliflower. I used Eric's recipe where I boiled it for like 10 minutes and then I baked it for like 15 minutes. And I actually ate that with some some ketchup. And I only had like 4 or 5 pieces with some ketchup, and it was kind of like a little French fry piece.
That's
a transitional diet.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the real. That's when this thing starts getting real, to the point of the illusion, because it feels like there's a lot of folks that are into the diet for various lengths of time, but usually within the first 5 years, like just even first couple years, and there's almost this illusion about how advanced they think they are physiologically, like they because some people have trouble, psychologically. This is an interesting piece to have to confront and deal with, because on one hand, you don't want to be hard on yourself. You don't want to feel guilty. There's no reason to go through all that, feeling guilty and being hard on yourself, and or feeling the oh woe is me, feeling sorry for yourself. I mean, and those things come up, and like we talked about in some other videos, you learn how to release some of these things. But at a certain point, you have to be able to look in the mirror and be incredibly honest with yourself about where you are physiologically, to be able to say, I am filthy. And it's not to be hard on yourself, because some people will say that, and because they hear me saying that to myself, because I'm like, I'm filthy, and
yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
the blood is fit, and it's not the type of thing that you clean up in 2 years or a couple years. This is a lifetime cleanup. We are lifetime janitors of our bloodstream. And there was a huge party that happened before we got to this earth, and the party is over. And so our job is to clean this thing up. And that's our only reason, from that perspective, that's the only reason we're here, is to clean. And so I remember vividly going through what you're talking about, because it was in that first couple years, and I would walk outside as I was at the campus at University of Cincinnati, and the campus always has all these restaurants, all this stuff going on, and I walked outside a couple times right in the midst of transition. I'm getting into my enemas, I'm starting to get off the meat, and I go outside and I smell all this fried chicken going on, and pizza across the street, and Boston Market over there, and KFC over here, and all these things. And mentally, I know they're bad. Mentally, I have the conviction of wanting to be beyond that addiction. Like, I'm no longer have to deal with, like, I don't know, like the attachment. I was unattached to wanting to be addicted. Those are all early phases where you actually have to want to not eat meat anymore. You have to want to not drink pus. And so I'd already been through that. But but it got to a point where the real deep dirty dog addiction would emerge every time I went outside and smelled this stuff burning. And it was like, oh wow. And you almost want to feel guilty, because mentally you've got to a space where you know that this is a deplorable activity for you to be doing, to even have that craving, to even have put yourself in a position where you can crave these, terrible foods. And it gets interesting. But
yeah, man, and it does. I mean, and that's another piece with the vegan meat options, I believe, because talking about the blood, I feel like when those things release into the blood, because we ate them in their meat version, it actually can make us think that we're craving that meat option. I was going through a phase yesterday or the day before where I actually was craving like burgers and like thick, juicy burgers, you know what I mean? And then as I focused on the craving, I actually realized like I was craving a black bean burger. And that was pretty unique, because it was like, first I was like, I'm craving a burger. Why is that? And then it was like, I'm craving a black bean burger. Which was something I ate for a long time as a transitioning vegetarian vegan, before the mucusless diet, and even early in my transition on the diet. But it's just like that's a unique part of it.
And I started realizing that I wasn't in a similar way. I started to really realize, Eric touches on this, but I started to realize it was not the meat that I was craving. It was the condiments. It was the ketchup and the mayonnaise and the mustard and the salt and the pepper and the whatever else that they used, the seasonings. And that's really what I was craving when I would smell something frying. I'm smelling this fat burn and this oil. And so that kind, and Eric sort of talks about that, because he has an interesting approach to sort of dealing with the condiments, because it's like the condiments are relatively harmless or less harmful. Certain condiments, there's one or two that you want to just get off of immediately, that you don't want to use for the transition. And this is we've been talking about this a little bit on the forum, and it's something that I might even do a separate video on it sometime. But there's and it's not a long list, but there's a list of about 2 or 3 things that would be on like a condiment list that you just want to scrap immediately as soon as possible. Now, when you're in those crazy craving periods and you grab for it, that's one thing. But to have it in your mind like it's going to be a part of your transition for an extended period of time is not a good approach, in my opinion. So vinegar is like number one. And I'll tell you the reason. that first of all, Eric was very much against vinegar, so much that he actually said it's better to have mayonnaise where you would use egg to make the mayonnaise, but use lemon juice instead of vinegar. So egg is better than vinegar, you know, like that's my question for Eric. Like, really?
Right,
you know,
right.
But that's letting you know the his opinion on vinegar. Now, from my experience, the reason for that, and I went through, as I had not garden, but nature. I call it the nature burger phases, and going through that was kind of my. I went and got some ketchup. I went and got like the organic ketchup. Like that makes a difference.
Right.
Man, mustard. They got one time I had the whole ketchup, mustard, the mayonnaise. You know, there was like that old vegan.
Oh yeah, I never tried
stuff,
that.
You know, and I went to town. You know, I definitely went to town. And
I hear that.
I ate myself through that period. I kept doing my enemas. I kept making sure there was a ton of salad and stuff all over the place. And I just ate myself right on through that. And because of the mechanics that I used, and because of not understanding that I was not, it's like this balance. On one hand, I'm not being hard on myself. I'm not feeling guilty about what I'm doing. It's the transition. That's what it is. On the other hand, I'm not comfortable. I'm not like patting myself on the back saying, oh, good job. You are vegan. You know, like that's definitely not in there. And I noticed that's where most people fall at one of those two poles. They're either hard on themselves and feeling guilty, which makes them want to eat more and eat worse. That's part of that addiction of doing something and then feeling guilty about it right after it and wanting to, you know, try not to do it more. And then the other extreme is more the vegan mentality of, you know, I'm doing a good job. I'm so good, but you're like a starchitarian. You eating way too much mucus to be content with where you're at. That's where you're like, okay, I'm going to focus on these mechanics so that I can transition myself off of some of this mucus to a little bit better mucus, because there is, in my case at that time, the nature burger phase, there was much higher levels for me to be at where that I could be just as satisfied and just as whatever. I was able to get off of the tomato or the ketchup basically with tomato sauce, because I was making these like gourmet tomato sauces and putting that on whatever I would have put the ketchup on. It was like, well, I don't really miss the vinegar in the ketchup. This actually tastes better, you know. So the incremental changes are key. But yeah, that's a big thing to me, is that where you know, that perspective of sort of where do you place your you know, your reasoning and your understanding. And
am I correct in understanding that Eric says that when you crave something, it means that thing is flowing through your blood?
Yeah,
that's my understanding, you know, is that like if you're craving a burger, it's because those deposits from that burger are now eliminating into your blood, and in order to either not withdraw, you know, meaning to really just like not go down where your body wants to go, you crave it, and so you go back to it. It's like a cigarette. Like when does somebody crave a cigarette that makes them get that next cigarette? You know, why does somebody start on 2 cigarettes a day and they go up to a pack a day? It's all about with resisting elimination. And
yeah, that's it. I mean, that's the whole piece.
You know, if I crave an avocado, it's like I have an option to either go for the avocado, and then I'll have to go through it again. You know, and that's the part of this diet that kind of makes you be like, it just fed up after a while, because you're like, I think I'm enjoying this, but I can't stop. Like, it's like I enjoy it, and then the next day, because of how clean we're eating and the protocols, the enemas, the no breakfast, it very quickly eliminates. So it's next day, it's like, you better have an avocado. Matter of fact, you better have 2 or 3, because you're just going to keep going down this until you stop. And that's the point where it's like, I got to lay up on a bed or something, or like go outside for a walk and just forget about this piece for a few days.
Yeah.
And then
yeah,
it's like,
oh,
and then it's gone, you know, and then you're craving something else, you know?
Craving something else. Yeah, man. I mean, and that's crucial, man. And that's really the kind of conversations that I like to have with people that I don't hear enough, is that type of transitional strategies of what do you do when the cravings come up, and be honest about those cravings, because I think that's a holdover from that raw food and vegan, but especially the raw food and like the fruitarian dogma, is people sort of feel uncomfortable about talking about what they really going through and what they're really eating.
Right.
Because you want to look rhetorically hip, you want to look cool amongst your brethren. And if you're saying every time you fall off the wagon a little bit, if you're being honest about that, it's not really an open, you're often not greeted with open arms. And what I'm trying to do now is almost, it's kind of like I want to establish, as an educator, I'm trying to walk this line where it's, on one hand, I want to establish like, well, here is the list of things that it's strongly advised that you avoid if you don't have to go there. And that's why we're having all these almost like little mini debates and sort of trying to deal with the issue of the avocados and the nuts and the seeds. And it's like these things that people are coming to the thing wanting, it's like almost like they want to feel good about eating those things. And I'm saying, don't feel good about eating those things. Don't feel guilty about it either. Understand what it is.
Right.
And
exactly.
that seems like it's hard to find that balance for people, because people either want to feel good about what they're eating, or they want to be guilty about it and act like they need to like push themselves or do something extreme to get over this hump, so that they can be, you know, whatever in terms of, you know, looked at as, you know, I don't know. I think it's a self-image thing, and that could be a whole other video, but yeah. So
I know what you mean. I mean,
it's a real important discussion.
It is, and to practice this diet in a kind of sanitarium type way, we have to do that, because in the sanitarium, you're not like, oh, I feel great as a fruitarian, or I feel great on this fast. Sometimes you're like, you know, I'm feeling messed up, or I'm craving all this stuff. And it's to really get treatment, like when we're talking about at the kind of treating this thing as a establishment of health, to really get treatment, you have to say what you're craving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're on a grape thing and you're acting like, you know, you're taking on self-guilt, but you're not expressing like, oh, I'm craving this burger, or I'm craving French fries, then somebody won't know the options to give you.
Right.
Like for me, if I'm craving, like nuts don't really work for me. But if I'm craving like a lot of nuts or some kind of nut pate, I would have a baked sweet potato. And if that didn't work, I would probably go to a vegan burger before I went to like a whole bunch of nuts. That's just me. But if that craving didn't go away 2 or 3 days later, which it very likely might, you know, just having the burger or the whatever might be like, oh, I'm fine. But if the craving doesn't go away, I might just go in on some nuts have some nuts, experience them, and then go on, and I'm not looking at it like there's a dogma. I'm looking at it like I'm transitioning in a system, and that's the mucusless diet.
Yeah, well said. Well, let's end this video here. It was a great discussion. I want to thank you, Tony, for being on here, and thank all of you for tuning in to our discussion. Hit the subscribe button, like and share this video with everybody to spread the word, and we will talk with you later. Peace, love, and breath.
How would you like to earn a generous 50% commission by telling people about our series of natural health products and services? Would you like to have free diet coaching and training with Mucusless Diet Healing System expert Professor Spira and interact with other leaders from the Mucusless Diet community? If you answered yes to either one of these questions, then the Mucus-free-Life.com affiliate program is for you. Start making money in just 3 easy steps. First, sign up at www.mucusfreelife.com/affiliate-program. Second, share your private affiliate URL code with your friends, family, and contacts. When they buy our e-products or health services, you earn extra cash. Third, when others sign up for our program through your affiliate link, you receive up to 5% commission on all of the products that they sell. What we provide. You will have access to our affiliate resource site, where you will find marketing tools and much more. Also, for a limited time, you will get free diet coaching from Professor Spira and insider access to leading members of the Mucusless Diet community. Signing up is totally free, but this offer will only be available for a limited time. Visit www.mucusfreelife.com/affiliate-program and sign up right now.